what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this week's 9.0.5 PTR build, which actually came out on a Tuesday of all days, which is awkward. I thought it would be on Wednesdays, seeing how beta and alpha and things were. By the way, this build brought with it a handful of Warlock changes once again. There were a couple changes to PvP talents, one being Demon Armor, Curse of Tongues, a Torghast change to Pact of Infernal Intimacy, which is not as bad as it seems. We'll get to that. There was also some Demonology buffs. I guess a Demonology buff, but the buff that Demo got is actually probably the most relevant and, I guess, how do I word this? Ripple effect kind of buff. It could definitely sway things and make certain builds and legendaries and talents, everything, a decent bit more effective. Oh, and there also does indeed appear to be some kind of unique tongues returning PvP talents in the uncategorized changes, which we'll get to. So let's start off with the actual PvP talents here. Quickly, any Week of Warriors profiles or add-ons you see, you can grab for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions anytime, feel free to do so. Let's get into it with these Demon Armor changes. Okay, so like I said, Demon Armor has been buffed in today's 9.0.5 PTR build. Now, you might be asking, why is it 120% up to 160 now? Keep in mind, these PTR builds build off of each other. So if you guys remember from last week in the video I put out about tuning, Demon Armor had been buffed from 90% to 120. This is currently on live on retail still. I have both clients open. This is live, this is PTR. So this is 220 because I'm AF. It'll be 160 when I swap the Destro, because I was Destro on live, and there we go. So it's essentially, I mean, it's not technically doubling 90 to 180, but let's be real here. It's effectively basically doubling the actual effectiveness of the armor buff that you get from Demon Armor. Now, I'm not a PvP arena master. I'm not, you know, I don't have a 3,800 rating. I'm the best player in the world. Not really. But either way, I've heard that Warlocks have been pretty squishy in arenas, so hopefully it's a decent bit of a buff to our overall survivability when it comes to arenas, 2s, 3s, and all that. By the way, there is a reason why I have tongue in the search bar here. Trust me. Just stick with me here. So moving on past the Demon Armor buffs, I was going to save this for last, but we're already here. Demonology Dreadbite has been buffed. So this buff is actually really relevant. Now, if you think back to later stages of beta, I believe they nerfed Demonology and like really the actual aura modifier on Dreadbite and our dog's damage by a little bit. They buffed it by essentially 10%, 0.9 to 1. So this means that your dogs, their melee attacks, their actual, I think I have it over here as well. Their melee attacks, their Dreadbite is going to essentially be hitting 10% harder. Yeah, Call Dreadstalkers, attack power increased by 10, and Dreadbite and Dreadlash damage increased by 10. Now, this might not seem like something that's, okay, this is a massive buff, this is huge, this is crazy good, but it's bigger than it seems for a couple of reasons. Number one, let's go pull up an actual Demonology log here on Warcraft logs. Now, brace yourselves here. There's not going to be Demonology is mediocre at this point, but hey, it's good it's actually getting buffs because, well, it's mediocre. So pulling up Shriekwing here, let's just pull up the rank 1 log. What is the actual damage breakdown on this player from his Dreadstalkers? Both looking at Dreadbite and essentially the melee that they do. So we have Call Dreadstalkers, all the damage being lumped into here, essentially 162k. So 10% more, you're looking at about 175k, give or take. That's not terrible. I mean, it's going to push it probably to about, I guess, like 11-ish percent. I guess 11 and a half, either way. But it's more than just a raw single target generic build of Demonology buff. There are a lot of abilities that feed off of your Dreadstalkers and Dreadlash and things. Keep in mind, the number one build that I've enjoyed the most over alpha and beta and even live is the FTS Dreadlash Big Dogs build when it comes to Mythic Plus. That build is lacking when it comes to single target by a pretty good bit. So number one, this will help. Even though it's a very small bit of help, it will help nonetheless. Dreadlash, FTS, Soul Conduit, and Consumption. So when your Dreadstalkers charge into battle, their Dreadbite attacks now hit all targets. So keep in mind, Dreadbite was buffed by 10%, and if it AoEs in every target, it's going to be a pretty substantial buff to AoE playing this build. From the shadows, Dreadbite causes targets to take 20% more damage from your Shadow Flame, so it's just a decent bit of synergy here. And if you work in the actual Carnivorous Stalkers conduit, that gives your Dreadstalkers a chance to actually proc an additional Dreadbite. Number one, this conduit just straight up gains value in the first place because Dreadbite's getting buffed, so this conduit's effectiveness efficiency will be rising. Is it going to overtake like Fel Commando or Born of Blood in single target? I doubt it, unless there's a build built around it, which we'll get to in a minute here. But regardless, the Carnivorous Stalkers FTS Dreadlash build definitely is solid here. And keep in mind, if you're playing Wilfrids with this build, shorter tyrants mean more dog extensions, mean Dreadstalkers being active for longer, which means that, hey, more chances to actually proc Carnivorous Stalkers. So this is actually a pretty relevant buff here. Now, I think the FTS Dreadlash build in Mythic Plus is solid when it comes to like heavy AoE fortified weeks. Like I mentioned, it loses a lot of value in single target. This will help a tiny bit with that, but this change will also affect single target demo, playing Vile Fiend, playing Demonic Strength, playing Grimoire. It's just a flat buff to your damage. It's not like a substantial amount, the thing to write home about. It's not going to be a 300 DPS buff, but it's something. Also, keep in mind, going into legendaries here, which we talked a little bit about in the last video when they buff legendaries. This is on live right now. Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling. This was buffed in the last PTR build. Each soul shard spent on Hand of Gul'dan. That's very important to read there. Each soul shard spent on Hand of Gul'dan increases the damage of your next call Dreadstalkers by 3%. Let's go to PTR. Each soul shard spent. There's Demo out here. Demo. Each soul shard spent increases the damage of Hand of Gul'dan by 4%. So a 3 to 4% buff might not seem like a crazy amount, but when it's for each soul shard spent, and keep in mind that, I mean, Dreadstalkers have a 20-second CD, so you're typically squeezing in like 3 to 4 full like 3-shard Hand of Gul'dan cast. It's not 1% more damage in the end. It's not going from a 25% buff to 26. It's going from, you know, 25 to 35, or it's basically going, it's increasing the damage that your next Dreadstalkers are going to deal by 3% additionally per Hand of Gul'dan you cast. So let's say you cast 4 3-shard Hand of Gul'dans in between each called Dreadstalker cycle. That means on PTR compared to live right now, that next call Dreadstalker is going to be dealing 12% more damage, which does affect their Dreadbite, and Dreadbite has been buffed, which is really interesting because, once again, this reminds me a lot of Malefic Wrath on beta, when you had Malefic Wrath for Drain Soul, when you had Necrolord Decimating Bolt for Drain Soul, when you had Execute for Drain Soul. When you have a lot of these damage stacking abilities, things can get out of hand pretty quickly. We played with this legendary on beta towards the end of like the testing cycle and things. This legendary, albeit not the best in plus on live right now, with called Dreadstalkers, their Dreadbite ability was our #1 damage in plus, and it wasn't even close. I think it was like 30%. It looked like the BFA numbers were Demon Fire compared to everything else. Their Dreadbite hit really hard, and well, they buffed Dreadbite, and well, they buffed Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling. So something to definitely watch, keep in mind. A flat Demonology buff, super solid. Grim Inquisitors buffed the build before this. Also synergy once again between Carnivorous Stalkers, between FTS, between Dreadlash. Like I said, it will add some value to the pure single target value of Carnivorous Stalkers, but I don't think it's going to be enough to catapult it above, you know, Fel Commando or Born of Blood. But hey, the dog build's awesome, and at this point I think we can pretty much agree that Demonology probably does need a little bit of love. I'll take it. Not bad, but hey, I wouldn't mind a few more buffs along the way. All right, now before we get into the next changes here, I had to go back through my old YouTube channel. I know my cameras are sort of double stacked here. This is a video from Shadowlands beta. Look at my buffs here. Let me go back like 10 seconds here. Look at my buffs. This is not a 9-stack of the Demonology legendary. This is playing the big dogs build of Demo. Now this is not the full run. We're not going to watch the full run here, but I did find the end damage breakdown. This is the damage from, I think, what Tierna size is this? A 10 Tierna. Dreadbite was 16.2% of our damage. And this is also with the Dreadbite legendary not being at 4%, being at 3%. And this was after the nerfs, or this is essentially with the unbuffed version of Dreadbite. Also, we were playing the Carnivorous Stalkers conduit here, but it was a very low eye level. And it's 16.2% of our damage. So if you factor in, let's say roughly, it's hard to say because the actual legendary is probably going to buff it by about 12-ish% more. You can see it's stacked at 9 stacks, 12 stacks here again. I would assume you're probably 15 stacks even. I would assume you're probably looking at roughly a 10 to 15% like damage amp playing the new Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling legendary, if you were going to play that, which might end up working out and being worthwhile, but if you were. So a 10 to 15% additional buff to Dreadbite's damage on top of the actual ability being buffed by 10-ish%. I mean, you're looking at Dreadbite probably dealing over 1 million damage here it'd probably be somewhere around like just over 1 million damage. And look at the disparity between them here too. Now this is very, very early. I guess it's sort of late-ish into beta. This is still with some experimental builds and stuff. We were playing, you can see the build up here. We were playing actually Grimoire Felguard here over Soul Conduit. I think Soul Conduit's a bit better with this build. I think it's just better, more imps, more implosions with FTS Dreadlash being up. But nonetheless, the actual damage potential is there. Now, I'm not saying craft Grim Inquisitor's drug calling. Not saying that at all. But I am saying that 9.0.5 is around the corner. And if you have some Soul Ash now, I have Cinder's rank 3. I'd like to upgrade to rank 4. But part of me also wants to just sit on my Soul Ash and wait for 9.0.5. Because with legendary tuning, with conduit tuning, and with even just general class buffs like this going on, small things can affect the way you play, what legendaries you play, what you do here and there. I don't know, but I like the big dogs build. I wouldn't hate a little more value out of Dreadbite here. I'm happy. So outside of all those demonology buffs and the crazy synergy that they have with one another, there were a couple more changes made. Now, Curse of Tongues was changed, forced the target to speak in demonic, increasing cast time for 30 seconds. It's been changed to 1 minute. Duration changed from 30 to 60 seconds. If you look at the actual blue post here, I believe they clarify a bit more here. Let's see. I believe yeah, there we go. So it lasts 20 seconds against enemy players, which was 12 seconds. Now, like I said, I'm not a huge arena master when it comes to WoW, my area of expertise, but I haven't really heard a whole lot about Curse of Tongues being used in arenas. I'm sure that it is to a certain extent, but I'm not really sure as to how much the 8-second duration extension is going to make a difference. I'm sure it will. I guess it's a nice quality of life change. Hey, people already hate Warlocks for the most part because of the corruption to the legendary, so let's make them hate us a little bit more, I suppose. A solid welcome change. Actually, the final thing here we have for Torghast, Pact of Infernal Intimacy. So everybody loves Infernal Intimacy when it comes to Demonology, your Felguard destroying everything. I saw this change and I said to myself, I don't think that's actually a change. I'm 99.9% sure this is just a tooltip like correction or expansion. I'm pretty sure that Infernal Intimacy already caps at 500% as far as like just that ability goes. It'll still stack with like Pact of Thickness or the other traits that give you more stamina, which means your pick gets more stamina. But I'm pretty sure the actual like Pact of Infernal Intimacy health bonus stops at 500%. It still goes away whenever, if you die, you summon a new pet. Let's be real here in Torghast, typically either DC or die or one of 8 things happens. So this is almost an irrelevant trait for me, but I'm pretty sure it's just an actual tooltip correction and not something that's being nerfed or, at this point. Keep in mind, they also did, from what I heard, combined Pact of Thickness and Infernal Pact, I believe is what it's called, in the last PTR build before this one. I don't think it was mentioned that Infernal Pact, I think it's Hellfire Pact, right? The one that increases demons damage by 50%. I don't believe it was mentioned that it was removed from actual PTR in Torghast, but someone did mention to me that it's no longer there anymore, and it was just built into Pact of Thickness. So Thickness now gives you 50% more health and 50% more pet damage. At a bit of a higher rarity, it's uncommon versus, I believe, common, but let's be real here. Demo still destroys in Torghast as long as you don't fall behind or die a million times. So there's that. Now, like I mentioned, there's one more thing here, which is in the undocumented changes section. So does anybody remember Tongue-Tied? Does anybody remember Tongue-Tied from Alpha and Beta, the PvP talent for Curse of Tongues? I don't know what this means. Once again, this is in the undocumented changes section, so it could just be like a tooltip change, something they're maybe looking to work with. I don't really know, but it's here. So the duration was changed from 30 to 60 seconds, which is actually the same duration as Curse of Tongues is now. And I would assume this is, if this is a thing, I would assume it lasts the same 20 seconds in PvP combat versus 12 like Tongues does before. Either way, the ability, Spellcast afflicted by Curse of Tongues, negate healing on the caster, absorbing the next spell power healing received for up to 6 seconds. So I would assume that if talented into this, it's not actually here, I believe. Let me actually get back on PTR and make sure, but I'm pretty sure that it's actually not. Yeah, it's not, unless I can go to AF here. So what I assume this works like, which is similar to the way it was on beta, is that Tongues is applied to the target. It reduces the cast time that it reduces their casting time. On top of that, it also makes it so that if they cast a spell successfully while Curse of Tongues is active, it places an absorption heal on them, similar to, I guess, a handful of boss fights we've seen. It's an absorption heal. which makes it, you know, even more punishing to cast spells successfully while under the effect of Curse of Tongues. Now, an 8-second duration increase to Tongues, in addition to Tongue Tide potentially becoming a thing again, well, that could actually make Tongues, I guess, more relevant in arenas, 2s, 3s, RBGs, than it already is now. I'll take it. Like I said, I'm not an arena master, but we're already annoying with Corruption's low, so why not bring back Tongue Tide? Now, once again, I'm not sure if this is going to be a thing. It might just be some weird undocumented change thing or tooltip fix they're actually adding here. I don't really know. This was removed like towards the end of beta, and it just sort of vanished, and everyone was like, I think they removed this around the time we got Rapid Contagion back, or I guess Rapid Contagion, not really back, but I'm pretty sure they might even swap that out for one another. So THD did DM this to me right after I found it myself as well, and he's like, yeah, it might actually lead to or be pointing towards some kind of like PvP talent overhaul in 9.0.5 or maybe 9.1. We'll see. I'll take it either way. Hey, listen, I like launching some big death bolts as much as the other guy. Let's be real here. How often are we actually using death bolt in arenas? So now, on top of the actual Warlock changes here, there were a handful of conduits added to Castle Nathria in 9.0.5. Let's talk a little bit of potency conduits, by the way. Let's talk a little bit about those. So I'll be real with you. Not all my conduits are 226 on retail. I've had to buy 1 or 2 extra sockets for upgrades that I've gotten along the way. And I swear, I feel like I didn't really drag my feet very much in the maw, but I have basically just full 213 conduits at this point. I feel like I'm a little behind, but I don't really know how or why, because I do the maw almost every day. Either way, in 9.0.5, Blizzard have mentioned that they're going to be introducing potency conduits into Castle Nathria. Now, it's sort of coming at a weird time because I guess a lot of guilds are on farm. My guild is on farm. Not everybody is, but either way, they didn't clarify if it's something that they're going to be doing heading into next tier, which would be great for actual like progression. But regardless of all of that, they have actually added a handful of conduits inside Castle Nathria. Now, the Shade of Terror, Finesse, Endurance conduits have been here. The potency ones are actually the new ones. Now, I believe there were a couple fights. Yeah, Huntsman Baltimore. I believe Zymox, actually Zymox has one here, that didn't have a conduit at all. So I don't think they're totally done implementing these, but Shriekwing has Shade of Terror, nothing on Huntsman Baltimore. Sun King Salvation now has Rolling Agony. It's sort of suiting almost. Agony, Kel'Thas, Agony, and Agony, Sun King's Rolling Agony. It sort of makes sense. Yeah, but at 226 nonetheless. Now, the only way to obtain 226 conduits in game now is number 1, rated PvP. You can get 1 for each spec. It's like Malignancy, Combusting Engine, and I believe Born of Blood. And I think you can get the generic Covenant one, I think. Maybe something else. Or you can get them from Venari in the Maw. Once you max out all of your other conduits, it'll upgrade the lowest one you have. So like if I have all, well, 213s here, it'll choose between one of these and the rest of the 13s and upgrade them. So you slowly have a way to upgrade them outside of I guess PvP, but it's random. That's changing though. So we have Rolling Agony on Sun King Salvation at 226. We have Accrued Vitality on Zymox, which is the same thing here. Nothing on Huntsman. Hungering Destroyer now has Ashen Remains, which is awesome to see because Ashen Remains is sort of like I feel personally like the Focus Malignancy for Destro. Hey, this is what we're going to play, the set it and forget it kind of conduit. Because let's be real here, every target you're going to attack as Destro is probably going to have Immolate on it. And if it doesn't, it's probably going to die in half a second, and it's probably not really even worth attacking. For the most part, unless you're proccing a weird Korain like Conflict Rate, First Strike buff, and that's just a disaster in itself. So Ashen Remains being in the raids actually really nice. And once again, at 226 eye level is really nice to see. Now it is 213 for heroic, what is it for normal? 207? 200. And well, 184 for Raid Finder, which is sad because Raid Finder is the hardest difficulty in Warcraft, and it's not even close. But either way, moving on. Lady Unnerva Darkbane still has Resolute Barrier. This has been here for a while. The Endurance Conduit, Council of Blood, Demonic Momentum. Sludge Fist has Tyrant's Soul. Now, it's sort of weird. I feel like Tyrant's Soul was on a Sludge Fist loot table, maybe like in beta at some point. It sounds familiar, but I'm not really sure. The interesting thing here, though, you have 1 Demo Conduit, 1 Destro Conduit off Hungering, and 1 AF Conduit off Sun King Salvation. And then you move on to SLG, still have Diabolic Bloodstone, fine, good conduit. Denathrius. Denathrius' loot table has grown considerably. Denathrius has the 4 Covenant ones. So you have Soul Eater, Scouring, I guess Soul Eater, Soul Tithe, Fatal Kilrock's Cunning, which has been here for a while, Fatal, Decimation, and then Catastrophic Origin. Now, I would assume, like most everything else, you can only loot the Covenant that you actually have conduit-wise here. But this loot table's grown considerably. It's cool to see them adding it into the raid here. So that leaves us with what? 2 fights? It was what? Zymox? It's just 1? I guess it is just Huntsman Altamore that does not have a conduit of any type, whether it's potency, endurance, or finesse. I'm trying to think if anything if it even fits like the theme of Huntsman Altamore that they would add in here. It very well might just be that they're adding 1 for each spec. Actually, can we see here? Is there anything for Demon Hunters? No, I'm not a Demon Hunter master, but finesse conduit, nothing from, let's look at all classes. All classes have conduits here. This is a potency here. There's a potency for Frost Decay, and Prayer of Mending, finesse conduits. So I guess it's not totally limited to everything but Huntsman Altamore. I'm curious though if it's 1 per spec, and that's about it. Let me see Demon Hunters. So Demon Hunter has what? Finesse, nothing. Endurance conduit, which is fine. This is a potency conduit actually. So 1 potency. How many potencies are here total? Is there only 2? Endurance, finesse, potency. It looks like it. Yeah, there's actually 1 here. So I don't know. They actually have 1 off Sire Denathrius. So I was wondering if it was 1 per spec. But either way, having Ashen Remains, having Rolling Agony, and having Tyrant Soul in the raid is awesome because there are 3 relevant conduits. You play Rolling Agony a decent bit of the time for Affliction, whether you're playing Siphon Life and Mythic Plus, or if you're playing certain fights in the raid, like Sire Denathrius is actually not a terrible Rolling Agony fight. So Legion Generals, Dance Boss, and once again, Ashen Remains is your just set it and forget it go-to conduit for Destro. It's like Malignancy. You put it in, you don't change it until it gets nerfed. And it's also really cool, like I said, seeing the actual conduits for each Covenant here, because while they're not like amazing or anything, well, we haven't really had a good way to get them outside of just straight up Venari upgrades or getting it from a world boss. And let's be real here, that's a pain. So I don't want to get too far into these because conduit tuning, or I guess Covenant tuning and Covenant conduit tuning is a video I'm going to be making in a few days from now, but it's cool to see these on the loot table and really in the raid nonetheless. At this point, I assume we're probably going to be in 9.0 or 9.0.5 probably for a while, probably all the way until, well, for a while. I'm imagining probably June at this point is when we're going to be seeing the next raid, maybe late May. So anything that really keeps me engaged in content, well, honestly, I'm down. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video gave you all a better understanding of just what the actual changes today in this PTR build can and probably will mean for Warlocks heading into, I guess, later stages of 9.0.5 PTR. By the way, that clip of Demonology in Tyrannosaurus from beta, I just realized I'm wearing the same shirt as I am right now, and my hair is as long and as terrible looking as it is right now. And that was from, I don't know, about 6-7 months ago. Yikes. I guess I live a simple life. Either way, thanks for watching, guys. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. I'll be sure to get back to you. Let me know what you guys think of these changes as well in the comment section below. I'm curious to know your thoughts on them. I do think the Demonology probably is still going to need a bit more help. But then again, Demonology is in a weird spot going later on into the expansion because obviously some specs do scale better than others, looking at, like, I guess, AF over the last few expansions, all that stuff. But Demonology has like actual stat scaling going for it, like intellect, haste, mastery, and it also has weird stamina scaling going for it with demonic consumption. I mean, we've already seen people running like gladiators, emblems, whatever the stamina trinkets are that give you an insane amount of stamina that translates over to your pets having more stamina, which means your tyrant siphons more health. So I'm curious to see where that goes. Like I said, I don't think the Dreadstalker changes are enough to make it like tier 1 competitive at all, but it's a step in the right direction. And hey, the FTS Dreadlash build could gain a lot of value. I have my eye on Grim Inquisitor Shred Calling. I'd like to get a video out with Sims looking at the updated legendary, I guess, tuning, but we'll see if I can get that out before the month is up and go from there. Any Week Wars profiles or add-ons you see here, you can grab for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions, feel free to do so. If you guys want to see more WoW content and help support the channel, smash the like and subscribe buttons below as well. Helps out a lot. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch y'all again soon on stream. Peace.